Hello, I'm Mark Baer. I'm with Janice Rocke, multimedia performance artist. Your new play. Let's talk about that.
Artista Invisibile. Yeah. Well, we just did that at the Carl Cherry Theater, and it was essentially about women artists and their their agency within the art world. It was so a couple years ago I read an article about Elizabeth Seidel, who wanted to be an artist, and this was in the 19th century, and she kind of got into the art scene and the art world, and she was a very striking woman. She's very tall, had this beautiful red.
So this is late Victorian, pre-Raphaelite. She was the goddess of the pre-Raphaelites.
Yeah, yes, exactly, yeah. And so she was wanting to be an artist, but because of what she looked like, all these male artists wanted her to model for them. So instead she became the muse instead of the artist. And to me that was really interesting and a pretty common frustration for women in any profession. As you go into it, you want to be taken seriously, and you get pigeonholed into, oh, she's sexy, or she's this, or she's that, and it has to do with your physical, you become an object, essentially. And that's the whole thrust of what that play was about.
Elizabeth Seidel found a poem wrapped around a stick of butter and discovered herself to be an artist. But soon after, she was discovered to be the world's first supermodel.
Wowie, wowie, wow. Stop whatever crap you're doing. I gotta show you to my friends.
Yeah. Wow, what copper hair.
She's stupendously beautiful.
Magnificently tall.
Slender, tender, ready to rend.
Ooh, I want to paint her. I want
to dress her up like a little dog.
I want.
That was disappointing.
I guess I'll go see my wife now.
What do you want, Lizzie?
That was one of my favorite.
As we reached the end of the play, we got into how over time that manifests, and we got into violence against women. We had a piece about the women performance artists of the 70s and 80s, because the show was very loosely chronological. And the performance artists of the 1970s and 80s, they were all very interested in this idea of women being objectified, and they did a lot of work around that. Particularly Marina Abramovic did a really stunning, intense piece in Italy, and we kind of did a shortened version of it live on stage, and we've got some footage of that for you. And so that was what that show was about. Yeah.
Let's go right to the second act, because I knew a lot of the history of the first act, but then you got us to Mexico City, and that was, kind of my art history hadn't incorporated that. That was all really new and surprising and amazingly powerful. How did you happen to stumble on that?
Well, I already knew from literary circles and friends that Mexico City is the Spanish speaking literary capital of the world. And we did a show a few years ago called Femme Surreal, and it was about women surrealist artists. And in doing the research for that, I learned that a lot of the artists who left Europe during the diaspora of World War II ended up in Mexico City. So I learned then a lot about the art scene in Mexico City. I also just happened to know through friends and reading and just general, information that, it's also a hub of social justice. And those combinations that makes this a very richly cultural place. And I was very blessed to be working with Aidid Medina, who is a Fresno writer, and she is just brilliant. I mean, her work is so sensually rich and informed by her knowledge of botany, and she's just a lovely, so alive human being, and you hear it in her work, which you got to witness at the
Yes.
show. And so it's kind of an ideal situation because she wanted to write about Pita Amor, who was a famous Mexican poet. And so we dressed her up as Pita Amor, and we filmed her as Pita Amor. And then she, as herself, has a conversation with Pita Amor on stage. And then she wrote another piece that I knew of that she did at the Women's International Day in Mexico City a few years ago, and it is about the violence against women, particularly the missing women in Juarez in Mexico. And so I'd heard it before, and I knew it was a super powerful piece, and I thought, we should bring this into this, because this is the story. This is what it means to be an object, to not have agency, to, be seen as something that is, not, it's, you could throw it in the garbage because it's an object. And it's just okay. And so it kind of all just flowed together.
Indigenous women, cósmicas, cosmic women, and Mexico City shakes in the aftermath, hides behind drawn shades and locked doors. I walk freely through the Zócalo, smiling, pose triumphantly for my son to take a photograph. Behind me on the wall, graffiti reads, "I am not your fucking princess. I feel like a queen." My son says, "Of course you're not anyone's little princess, Mom. You're a poet." My heart joins the grito. I am one with my sisters. Esas locas. That's what my aunt's friend calls the protesters. As we talk about the Women's Day March over coffee and cigarettes, legs crossed. Just horrible what that crazy mob of loud women did in the center of the city. Atrocious, disgusting, vulgar, vulgar, vulgar. Her words, stone saints, land heavy punches to my throat. I will not swallow rubble. We will not swallow rubble anymore. I spit the stones out. Generations of women pushing their breath through me. Oiga, better to be loud and crazy but alive than to be well-behaved, silent, and dead.
Again, I have a very Eurocentric art background. When we discussed this, and we took this back to you're going to school here, and what you learned from your professors, and then what you learned. So let's go back to that, and then finding different professors. So,
Yeah, so when I do shows, I really try to bring in a lot of diverse voices because for so long, the Monterey Peninsula has been very, as we say, the art world, the theater world has been very Eurocentric. And so what I had compared from my experience with college is that I went to MPC, and over probably about 95% of my the faculty, the teachers, were white heterosexual people, and they were lovely people. And I can't really even think of one that I didn't like or who didn't have who wasn't socially conscious. But when I switched over to CSUMB, they had this way more diverse faculty, and the teachers were not just these, white people. And so when they taught me, their perspectives were informed by their life experiences, which were different than my own, and it was so much more enriching an experience. And I learned so much more. And so I feel like that translates a lot in theater and art, is that if we see these stories told by other people, it expands our worldview. It expands our sense of empathy and our compassion and our and you know what? Beyond any social justice or compassion or anything, it just gets boring.
right.
It just it's just more interesting.
So I've been watching you develop over the years, because we have a very small community and everybody's aware of everybody else, and we all depend on each other's energy to go and to strive here, because and you've always been very all your work has a high level of ambition to it, a high level of integrity to it. And so what do you hope to accomplish with your work? Where are you going?
Well, well, one of the things has to do with the performers themselves, and oftentimes I'll choose people who aren't as experienced. I like to have experienced people on board, but I like to see, I'll see people doing something, and I'll think, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if they realize how talented they are, and I'll pull them into it, and it really is rewarding to see people grow from the experience of being a part of something you've put together. And I give everybody a lot of space, and that's why I can be so ambitious, is because when I see talented people, I don't try to control everything. I give everybody a lot of space to be really creative, and it really brings up the level of just color and everything in the show. And of course, there are things I'll go, oh no, we can't do that. I am the producer, and I will say no at certain points, but I don't try to control it. And then I just hope that when, like this last show, people came out of the theater, we were in the lobby, and said, wow, I didn't know about all that. I'm really moved, and that was beautiful, and I just feel like I learned a lot, and not preached at, but learned from an experience that was beautiful and interesting and not academic, and that's exciting to me to feel like I've moved people, and I've changed people, and I've helped people to grow as human beings, and I grow from it.
So as a theater producer, what you've brought visually, multimedia, to the stage. I mean, it's so interesting how theater is so different what a theater set can be now, with visuals and multimedia, and that was very rich in this, and that's something you put together as well.
Well, I put most of the videos together. Yes. Then we had Nelson Basden did some of the video work, a lot of the atmospheric stuff on the side.
Yes.
He did a lot of that, and then he did a couple of the main screen videos. But I did most of it. Lots of montage stuff, and I love video. I love editing video. It's a lot of fun, and so it gives me an opportunity to do that. And I'm one of those people. I'm what do you call it? A Jill of all trades, and master at none. But I'm very good at making connections and putting things together, like finding links between things and being able to tell nonlinear stories.
Well, it was very moody, and it's just really interesting what it brings to theater. I've seen a lot of, that seems to be a direction that people are going in, mm-hmm. and it's suddenly the theater becomes very. It's just not a set. It's not a static set. It becomes a very live set. It's like three-dimensional. It's like partly a film, partly a play, partly something else, and I feel like you're redefining what your boundaries are.
Yeah, well, our next production in March is called Encounter Intuitive, and it's about art on the fringe, and we do hope to make it a lot more dimensional because we're looking at a lot of abstract art, and we want to create atmospherics. Like where it just seems like people are in the paintings, and there's going to be a lot of absurd comedy to it, but there's also this subtext of where we're looking at colonization and how art has been colonized, and how art on the fringe is not considered high art. And again, we get back to that Eurocentric perspective of what is high art and what is not, and who gets to do it. And we've chosen some outsider artists and some neurodivergent artists that we're going to be looking at. And I also want to mention right away Rocket Garcia, who I really feel blessed to be working with, because he came up from LA. His mother told me he was coming up and asked me, do you know anybody in theater I can get him hooked up with? And I needed somebody to help me with Artista Invisibile. And he is so brilliant, and he writes wonderful comedy. But he also wrote some of the stuff in the second half of the show, like that was pretty powerful. And so he and I talked about this next show, the way we want to do it. And we want to weave that really moody, interesting storytelling in with absurdity. And so I'm really excited about that, to see how that comes out, because we're just right now in the very nascent stages of doing the writing, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It just seems, like there's a little moment going on here where the theater in a small town can be very powerful, and people are coming in with a lot of ambition. And really trying, swinging for the fences. And it's very exciting.
It is exciting, and what's really also wonderful about it is that in small towns like this, people aren't thinking, oh, I'm going to do this, and then so-and-so is going to see me, and I'm going to end up getting in the movies, because that's probably, it's so highly unlikely. But we're all doing it because we love it. We love to do it. We can't not do it, and so you're working with people who are just coming from their heart.
But seeing new work.
Yeah.
Just to see new work and fresh work, and not just a revival of something, and it's
right.
It's not all pleasing, and not all pleasing is very pleasing to me.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so, you know, thank you for this, and you know, you will inspire others, and others will answer. You know, it's art's call and response.
I think so, yeah.
And,
I
so-
think that's happened a little bit actually in the
Yeah.
last few years, but yeah.
So anyway, I'm Mark Baer. I'm with Janice Rocke. You're watching YourTown Television, and anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there an art to being a woman? A performance? I think so. I think femininity lies not in the vagina or the chromosomes, but that womanhood is a construct, another category in which people place themselves to make sense of the senseless.
Painting matters. Nothing I love, I die so much. Nothing else matters. Keep so much nothing. I love so much painting die.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. No fear. No fear.
A body interpreted as a female body is on display 24/7, a walking piece of art to all who can claw their way close.
Don't wear those shorts.
Don't wear
Mija.
those shorts,
Your
Mija.
uncles are coming over. Don't wear that dress tonight. You'll be asking for
More.
it. Cover up more. Do you want people looking at you like that?
An invitation to touch
To allow your truth to pour out from your body.
Water
Red and
hands.
viscous, loud and
Perpetual
precise.
vagina.
From your mouth or your
Afraid.
hands or through your
Cleanse.
limbs.
Self.
Brushed onto a
To
canvas.
dip.
Tapped onto
Water.
a typewriter.
Dip.
Pirouetted on a dance floor. Or hailed upon a musical instrument.
Do you want to come up and touch me? It's not an invitation.